Okay, thank you everybody, and good afternoon. It is officially afternoon now, so I appreciate your opportunity to talk to you today. Introduce you to Dimerix. So Dimerix is an ASX listed company based in Melbourne, Australia. We are a company focused in inflammatory diseases, and in particular a disease called focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, or FSGS, which is a rare type of kidney disease which we're currently in phase 3. Note forward-looking statements today. The phase 3 disease indication that we are in is a disease that has no approved treatments anywhere in the world at the moment. So this is a big opportunity, given that we could be one of the first, if not the first, to market for this indication. It's a rare disease for which we have orphan drug designation in a number of territories, including US, Europe, Canada, Japan, UK, which gives us a number of advantages around pricing, regulatory, and of course exclusivity that comes with that as well. One of the other key opportunities for us is over the last couple of years we've done 4 commercial licensing deals, and that gives us not just the technical validation on our prior clinical trials, but also the commercial validation with those 4 partnering that could bring in up to $1.4 billion in upfront and potential milestones with royalties on top, of which we've received over $65 million already. Now, putting that into context, just to take you a step back and to explain what is FSGS, what is it we're working in? FSGS literally means some sections of the kidney are scarred, and what happens over time is more and more sections become scarred until there's not enough left to filter blood and you end up in renal failure. If you look at the graphic on the slide at the moment, at point number 1, these patients typically present with high blood pressure. As they come in with that high blood pressure, that causes a build-up of pressure in those kidney vessels, and that causes point number 2, which is inflammation of those cells. As the cells become inflamed over time, that causes a scarring or fibrosis, and that brings you to point number 3 at the bottom of loss of those cells. Those cells die off. Now, kidney cells are not like other cells in the body. They can't regenerate. So once those cells have gone, you can imagine you come back to point number 1 with fewer cells working even harder, causing more pressure, causing more inflammation, causing more cell death. So you go round and round this cycle faster and faster, each time with fewer cells, until you end up in renal failure. Now, sadly, this disease impacts children down to 2 years old all the way up to adults. So this is by no means an old person's disease. This impacts everybody at all ages. And from diagnosis, typically end-stage renal failure is less than 5 years. Now, the current standard of care is blood pressure medication, and our drug works on the inflammatory pathway. Now, there are 2 things that we typically measure in these clinical trials. Now, historically, I'll just give you some context on that. Historically, there was not a lot done in the kidney space, and that was because trials had to run to these hard renal endpoints. They could take decades and thousands of patients, so nobody did it. Little innovation in kidney space. What's happened now is we can move towards these surrogate endpoints. And the surrogate endpoints that we typically look at in the kidney disease is EGFR, estimated glomerular filtration rate, and proteinuria, protein in the urine. Looking at EGFR, typically when we're born as babies, we all have an EGFR of about 120, so we all start up here. Every day of our lives as we sit here, our kidney function is declining. And that's the black line you see on this slide here, age along the bottom. You can see most of us will be long gone from this earth before we intersect with kidney failure, which is the red line. But for these FSGS patients, that kidney function is crashing, and that's the green line down the middle. We've picked that star at the average age in our clinical trial being 45, but that green line can happen at 2 years old or at 90 years old. Once it's triggered, it crashes really quickly. Sadly for these patients, if they end up with a transplant, 60% get reoccurring disease in a transplanted kidney, so again, not a solution. And so what we're trying to do, and drugs like Dimerix 100 are trying to do, is move that green line back more in line with natural aging. So you can imagine with this patient, if they followed the natural trajectory of aging trajectory, they could hit end of life never seeing dialysis, which would be an amazing outcome. But even if you only move it a little bit, you're buying them years on the life of the kidney, and that's what this is about. On the right-hand side, proteinuria, the kidney is a really good filter. So a patient should see, or a healthy person should see little or no protein in their urine. As the kidney becomes damaged, like FSGS, it becomes quite leaky, and you end up with protein spilling from the blood into the urine, and that's proteinuria. It's known that the amount of protein in the urine is a measure of how fast is your kidney disease progressing. So if you can reduce the amount of protein in the urine, you are slowing down the rate of kidney disease progression. So that's what we measure, is EGFR and proteinuria in our clinical trials. So we're in the middle of a phase 3 clinical trial at the moment. We're aiming to recruit approximately 286 patients. We already have 246 patients, so you can see we are well and truly on our way. We're recruiting in 21 different countries, not only US, Europe, Australia, but also mainland China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Japan and Malaysia. So this is a true global study, with the one study being potentially approvable in all territories. The study itself, all patients stay on that background standard of care, the blood pressure medication, and then they're given drug or placebo for a period of 2 years. At the end of the 2 years, we measure both proteinuria and eGFR. In de-risking the particular asset, we also did an interim analysis last year, blinded interim analysis, where we looked at the drug versus placebo in predictive power to confirm what we saw in phase 2 is what we're seeing in phase 3. And the answer there was a big yes. We are seeing the drug performing better than placebo at that point in time. And that's really important because that takes some risk out of the clinical trial as well. We are leading towards a potential interim analysis towards the end of this year, and then on the back of some meetings with the FDA on whether we can unblind that and go for what we call a potential accelerated approval. We could be going to market early. Putting that into context, the first step was working with a particular working group originally set up by the FDA called Parasol. That was looking at the 12-month data in FSGS patients around the world, not our data, to confirm that there was a correlation between 12-month reduction of proteinuria and preservation of kidney function. That is a correlation. We're now taking that to the FDA to confirm that the FDA agree with that, and if there is an agreement there, we may be able to unblind the data at the end of this year and then potentially go for what we call accelerated approval. So a really exciting next 3 to 6 months for Dimerix. Putting that into perspective of it's a rare kidney disease, but not ultra rare. There's a really good number of patients around the world. And that is largely growing. And that's because, as I mentioned before, this was an area where there was little or no innovation for over 20 years. And so what happened is when patients came to their doctor and the doctor said, well, you've got kidney disease, it didn't matter which one because there were no treatments for any of them. As different treatments are becoming available for the different types of kidney disease, what we are seeing is biopsy rates going up because most of these kidney diseases are diagnosed by biopsy. As the biopsy rates are going up, we're actually seeing the rate of patient incidence in these diseases, including in FSGS, growing quite rapidly. The other thing to put into context is the pricing. Now, obviously nothing in FSGS at the moment, so we can't give you a sense of what FSGS specifically will be priced at. However, when you look at a different rare type of kidney disease called IgA nephropathy, they have 4 products approved. Not one of them has reduced pricing despite 4 of them being on market. They all retail between $120,000 and $550,000 US per patient per month. And those are all reimbursed through the US healthcare system. So again, gives you context that these are perfectly acceptable pricing levels for rare kidney disease and are reimbursed through the US. You'll also note on this slide that 2 things. First of all, the difference between US pricing and European pricing is not a big differential. So when we talk about most favoured nations, despite orphan drugs at the moment being exempt from pricing negotiation, even if there was a most favoured nation, the pricing differential is not big between the 2 in the different territories. The other component there is we are manufacturing both API and finished product in the US at the moment. So we're in a really good place from a commercial perspective in taking this product through to market. Put that into context of the 4 licensing deals we've done. We've licensed some of those key territories, US, Europe, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Middle East and Japan, all with 4 very capable partners in the rare disease and kidney space, a very strong expertise in taking these products through pricing reimbursement, through regulatory approval and with existing commercial infrastructure. And that exponentially grows our expertise. Across these 4 partners, we have up to $1.4 billion in upfront potential milestones. Royalties are on top of that, between mid-teen up to mid-20. In fact, Middle East is 30%. And that puts us in a really strong position with over 65 million having come in the door already, sharing the risk with our partners and de-risking it for our investors. Put that in again into context of where we sit on our capital structure at the moment. At the end of the last quarter, we had just shy of 70 million in the bank. So we're in a really strong financial position to continue on that FSGS pathway and program, delivering on that phase 3 asset. But in addition, we have the opportunity now to turn our attention to bring in other additional pipeline opportunities. So one of the key things that we're looking at as the potential catalysts moving forward, on the left-hand side here, everything we delivered in the first 6 months. In the middle is everything that we're working on in the back half of this year. We have a number of key activities, including bringing new pipeline opportunities in, as well as the FDA feedback, that blinded interim that could lead to an unblinding and accelerated approval, and full study recruitment. And in amongst that, as if that was not enough, is the opportunity for potential other licensing transactions with other territories, including mainland China, where we have agreement with NMPA that study is approvable in China. We're recruiting in mainland China as well. So lots to watch for in DMX 200 and Dimerix. Look out for ticker code DXB. Thank you for your attention, and I will finish there.